Greetings, my dear brothers and sisters, members of this secular order of the Discalced Carmelites, and those others who are interested in the secular order of Discalced Carmelites, or those friars or sisters who are assistants and guiders of the members of the secular order of the Discalced Carmelites. You're welcome to this video. This is video number 27 in this series. And at this point, it will be the last of the videos on this particular subject. The subject is a book that was printed in the ICS called Welcome to the Secular Order of Discalced Carmelites, which I wrote 12 years ago. And I wrote after 12 years of experience. Actually, I didn't write the book. These were collections. The book consists of collections of conferences I gave in different places at different points, or little writings that I wrote from the office of the Discalced Carmelite General Delegate in Rome. But there are conferences that I gave either in the United States, or in the Philippines, or some other place where the conferences were then gathered together by a member of the Washington Province, United States, Discalced Carmelite Secular Order member, who put the book together. So the book is available. The first 3 chapters of what we've covered so far, and those first 3 chapters contain, as far as I can see, the foundation of the ideas that go at the foundation of the identity and life of the member of the secular order of Discalced Carmelites. They cover the most basic points. The other chapters in the book, 1, 2, and 3, are the ones that I covered in the videos so far. The other chapters in the book, I would just like to give a brief introduction to. They're for your reading. The 4th chapter is on the Holy Spirit. Well, you might say the Holy Spirit belongs to the first of these chapters, belongs at the beginning of this book, because everything, it's amazing how everything is done through the Holy Spirit, in the Holy Spirit, gathered together by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit as the person of the Trinity, as Teresa says, the one who never said anything, but the one who was always present, because it's necessary presence. And I already spoke about when we make meditation, at least in the monastery, for both the friars and the nuns, we begin meditation with "Come, Holy Spirit," the brilliant light of the Holy Spirit. Taste for the good. So the chapter is on the Holy Spirit, the giver of life, Carmel, and renewal. The next chapter, the chapter after that, is just a basic summary of the origin of the identity of secular order in the church. St. Francis of Assisi, the founder of the Franciscans, founded a group of penitentiaries, lay penitentiaries, the order of penance. And there were lay people who lived in the home, and because mendicant spirituality, Carmelite spirituality is mendicant spirituality. Mendicant spirituality means the spirituality of the mendicant orders, the Dominicans, the Franciscans, the first mendicant orders, the Carmelites, the Discalced Carmelites, Augustinians, Servites, and 1 or 2 other little congregations. The whole idea of the mendicant spirituality was to take the spirituality to the people, not bring the people to the monastery. That was the monastic orders, the Benedictines, Trappists, and others, that the people came to the monastery. And the friars, or the fathers, or the monks, they're monks. We're not monks. The monks stayed in the monastery. The friars, all the friars, went out and went among the people. So Francis of Assisi, along that line of mendicant spirituality, taking the spirituality to the people, the ordinary people, the people who make up the majority of the church. Francis of Assisi was the first one to initiate secular order. He didn't call it secular order, he called it the order of penitentiaries. But it was the foundation, it was the beginning. 800 over years ago. The identity of mendicants, and still today, mendicants are the only ones that have secular orders. No matter what name other congregations or societies give to the lay associates, secular order is not a valid one except for the mendicant orders. The monastic orders don't have secular order members, they have oblates, that way of participation in the Benedictine spiritualities, oblates. We have secular order members in the Congregation for Religious in Rome, the Congregation for the Institutes of the Religious Consecrated Life and the Societies of Apostolic Life, the Congregation in Rome, which is in charge of all religious orders, all religious congregations. There's a section for secular orders. There are people in Rome, in the Vatican, who are there to guide and direct the secular orders. So this little chapter, it's only a few pages, talks about the history of the secular orders in the church, where they became from. The next chapter in this book that I'm referring to, Welcome to the Second Order of Discalced Carmelites, the next chapter is entitled The Beatitudes and Your Vocation to Carmel. I remember when I gave this conference, it was 2004, and I gave the conference in Boston, Massachusetts, at a Congress of the Washington Order Province. I remember that one specifically because I had to drive from Philadelphia up to Boston, and I was thinking over this conference all the way up as I was going up. But the conference is on the Beatitudes, your vocation to Carmel. The Beatitudes and your vocation to Carmel. The religious, the priests, the nuns, make the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. You make the promise of poverty, chastity, obedience, and the Beatitudes, to live according to the Beatitudes. And this is a particular addition to the identity and the action of the Sacred Order vocation. As I've mentioned before, the nun's vocation takes place, the living of their vocation takes place in the cloister. They're cloistered, the nuns. The father's vocation takes place, and their living out of their vocation takes place in communities that form a province of service to the church. And the secular order members, they live their vocation, they practice their vocation in the world. And the Beatitudes, both the Beatitudes as found in St. Mark's and St. Matthew's Gospel, which is the more famous one, the 8 Beatitudes. It was really 9, but we never talk about the 9th one. But, and the Beatitudes is found in St. Luke's Gospel. There's only 4. They're shorter, more succinct. But the Beatitudes are the way a Christian, a Catholic, a person who is following Jesus lives life in the world. So you in your vocation, and in the living out of your vocation, in the promise of your vocation, you accept this identity to live the Beatitudes. They're not optional. They have an equal place with the promise of chastity, poverty, and obedience. We go to lengths when we do when I comment on the constitutions, we go to lengths commenting on the constitutions on the poverty, chastity, and obedience. But it's up to the individual member and the individual community and the individual province to see how to live the life of the Beatitudes, inspired by the Beatitudes. And I want to point out in a special way the virtue of justice that the Beatitudes talk of. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice' sake. Blessed are those who are persecuted for justice' sake. Justice, justitia, is primary in the life of a Catholic, and it should be. But it's also primary. But it is primary in the life of the secular order member. What do you do for justice in the society you live in? What do you do for justice in the area of your life that you can do? That you can do with your family, that you can do in work, that you can do in your neighborhood, that you can do in your parish. How do you contribute to the world being a more just place? Just. It is truly just and right, we say in the preface nearly every day. And as you remember from your catechism, the 4 cardinal virtues. Justice was the first of them, justice. Prudence. No, wait a minute. Oh, I forget them. I'm going to skip that part. But justice as a virtue that is part of the Christian life, and certainly part of the ministry of Jesus. So the Beatitudes are the commitment of the Second Order member to live the spirituality as a Catholic, as a Carmelite in the world. The next chapter is just a little blurb, a little comment on the place of study. Because originally, when we first did the Constitutions, now 18 years ago, I guess, 2003, or maybe 19 years ago. Next year will be 20 years. When we first we did the Constitutions and presented them in different parts of the order of throughout the world. The place of study of our spirituality was given a priority in the Constitutions. And so many people got confused about the place of study. And what I wanted to point out in this little comment on the role of study in the secular order of the Discalced Carmelites is that study is not necessary to obtain a degree in spirituality. It's not necessary to get a doctorate in Teresian spirituality or the spirituality of St. John of the Cross in order to be a Discalced Carmelite member. But it is necessary to know what you're talking about when you present yourself as a secular order member. If you present yourself as a secular order member and you have no idea what St. Teresa writes or teaches, or St. John of the Cross, or St. Teresa, or some Carmelite saint, if you have no idea, who are you representing when you say, I am a Discalced Carmelite? When I say I'm a Discalced Carmelite, I'm saying the spirituality that I follow is the spirituality of St. Teresa, of Jesus, John of the Cross, and that's why I made my commitment to this order, to present to the world, through the means of Carmelite spirituality, the person of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So, the study has a place in the formation of the Discalced Carmelite. Then there's a long chapter on how ought the council function, because new responsibility and redefined responsibilities were given to the council. And so I wrote just some notes, particularly on the place of the council in the life of the Discalced Carmelite community. A good community has a good council. A divided community has a bad council. In short, in summary, that's it. How does the council function? What are the responsibilities? What are the obligations of being a council member? A council in religious life, and the Discalced Carmelite secular order is part of the religious life of the church, of the order. A religious life, there's nobody who's boss. The superior is not the boss of the community. The superior is not the boss of the commissariat or the province or the delegation. The superior is not the boss of the monastery of nuns. The superior is always there to serve the community. How does the community function? Who's a good superior? But particularly paying attention to that word boss. We're not the boss when we become superior. We're the servant. I used to say when I was a provincial, everybody else was my superior. I had to do what was best for them. Not they had to do what was best for me. And it's a different way of functioning than the world. The world functions with the bosses being the bosses. We don't have bosses. Then there's some notes of clarification. The importance of meetings. Negative experiences in secular order. Discernment and formation. There's some final notes on the accompaniment in the process of formation. And the so these final notes, these final chapters, after chapters, the first 3 chapters I presented point by point, and I tried to stick with one point at a time, because they were really succinct, and they were really foundational. The other chapters of the book deserve a reflected reading, and maybe even study in their community or with your formation director. What I plan to do beginning in the next video is to begin with the first page of the constitutions of the Discalced Carmelite secular order and go from the first number to the 60th number and reflect on each number, give some idea about the history of why was it said, how did the constitutions come about, who was the participants in writing the constitutions, what was the process, and then I'll go through the constitutions, through the letters that introduce it and accompany it, and then the rule of St. Albert, just to mention the rule of St. Albert, and then the commentary on the constitutions. I have a particular, you might say, autorevolezza, they would say in Italian. I have a particular authority on the constitutions of the secular order because I was the one who coordinated them and put them together and made the final, well, the final form was given by Father Camillo Maxiste, who was the general of the order. And to him we owe the great debt of gratitude for the secular order constitutions. But I put them together. I presented them to him. He did some final drafting, and then we sent them to the Holy See for approval. But I will get to that as we do the history and the commentary on the constitutions. A number of people, both in private messages and in comments on the videos, have told me I don't smile enough. Now, I have to tell you the history of my smiling. I've told it to people, you might have read it in some of the comments. I've told people. When I was in first grade, 6 years old, in the schoolyard of St. Athanasius School in Philadelphia, I fell. I was knocked over and I fell and I cracked a tooth right in the front. The front tooth was cracked. And I had that cracked front tooth for my whole boyhood and into my young adult years. From the time I was 6 until the time I was 25. When I was 25, because I had to get them fixed before ordination. I had to get it fixed. I put it off as long as possible because I needed to get a new cap. It needed to be drilled down and rebuilt. But anyway, I had this gap in my teeth. And I learned to smile without smiling because I was very self-conscious of this gap in my mouth. So it's remained as a characteristic of my personality. I knew a priest in Philadelphia who was dead a long time, Father McGinty, I think his name was. But he used to say he saved his smile for heaven. I'm not saving my smile for heaven. I'm smiling most of the time, only privately.